Have you always wanted to achieve great success? Have you always found that for some reason or another, you get stuck at one point and unable to move forward? Well, the biggest thing that stops you from doing that is your mindset. And we have an amazing guest today that's going to talk to us and share with us some of the fastest ways to develop that mindset so that you can reach that utmost success. And this is a great friend of mine, somebody I've known for many, many years, over a decade now. One of the people that I think has one of the best mindsets ever, because every time I see him, he is smiling, he has amazing energy, and he's able to make everything sound very, very fascinating that I just don't know how he does that, but that's really because of his mindset. And the person I'm going to be talking to today is Mr. Richard Canfield. So welcome to the show, Richard.
Happy to be here, Fong, and I'm excited about this topic to get into the idea of mindset. And I think that one way that I would like to kick it off is to kind of reflect on how we develop our mindset. And in my opinion, the way that our mindset gets shaped and formed around us, I mean, it happens from our environment. And when we think about our environment, the biggest component of that is the other minds that we're surrounded by. So whether you're at work or a job, or you're in your business, or you're around other family members and your friends and the circle of people that you associate with, they all have a mindset. And so as you engage in conversation with them and you also are observant of the things that they do and the habits that they have, they tend to impact you in your own thinking, your own mindset. Again, if we're trying to set goals, big, hairy, audacious goals, small goals, little goals, big goals, and we want to accomplish things in life, accomplish things in the world, we need to be thinking about the best way to do that. And our thinking is really what matters. And so our thinking gets impacted by these environmental factors. And a huge component of that, again, is the people we surround ourselves with. So if you really want to look at amplifying your mindset to such a degree where you can reach some of the goals and the things that you have in your life, you need to make sure that you're surrounded by the right minds circling you. And if those minds or the other mindsets around you aren't conducive to maybe propping you up, supporting you on the journey of your life, instead, there's more like they're tugging you down. You feel like you're being pulled maybe into some mindset abyss. I mean, you want to claw your way out of that. Well, the way that you do that is you look for people who are there to help lift you up, help support you. And they're there to challenge you to be a better, greater you. And those types of things and those types of people really, I believe, is what helps you produce the best possible mindset that gives you the highest probability of achieving the levels of success that you want in your life. When I say you want, your level and desire of want will dictate how much of that mindset you want to bring in. So if you are setting really small, tiny goals, hey, that's fine. Any goal is better than zero. Mm-hmm. But if you want to go for the big, hairy, audacious goals, you need to be around people who have a mindset of achieving or have already achieved big, hairy, audacious goals. So the level and the caliber and the quality of people that you surround yourself with and the things that they've done or the direction that they're heading, that's going to help give you that. It's kind of like, it's like gravity. Gravity is a natural law. If I jump up right now, I won't jump very high, by the way, but if I did, I know I'm coming right back down onto the floor. And if I jump really high, I'm getting a bit older, Fong. My knees might hurt a little bit if I did that. So I'd probably be a little bit more cautious. But if gravity being a natural law, you want to get into the gravity of people that are movers and shakers in the world that are doing big things, if big things are what you want to achieve. So you can get sucked into that success gravity that they're creating.
Awesome stuff. Everything you talked about really, really resonates because there's a lot of scenarios where I remember my process of becoming who I am today, that I did have people kind of naysaying. Sure enough, they may be your family, your friends, your closest people. So for you, if somebody that's very close to you gave you things that's not helping your mindset, what do? Do you shut them out? Do you spend less time with them? Like lots of people go, well, it's my mom or it's my dad. How do they deal with that scenario so that they're still able to build their mindset, yet kind of shielding themselves away from the negative mindset that might be coming from family?
Oh, that's a really good question. And, I would definitely say that I don't have the answer for it. What I would say is we're all a work in progress. I envision in my mind there's somebody who's got like a little piece of wood and they're like whittling away at the wood to shape and craft, cutting something out of this piece of wood that was a piece of wood. And we're always kind of working on that on ourselves, on our own brain. And so sometimes we might make a mistake along the way and then we say, oh, geez, the vision I had for what this piece of wood was going to turn into, I have to modify that a little bit because I took too big of a chunk out of this one section. So I have to modify my design a little bit, and I'm still going to turn it into something awesome. We're going to fall on our face a little bit along the path, but trying things. And I have experienced those things both from a family perspective, but also from other friends and people that I used to associate with. And for myself, Fong, I grew up in a family operated business in a small town, a small farming community in Alberta, and moving into the real world of life, I immediately got, I was barely days out of, graduating high school when I took a job as an electrician and I started the electrical trade. And although I enjoyed the trade a great deal and the certain activities that were there that I found good because I, a very tactile, physical oriented person, so that there was certain good things that were there, the mindset around that environment of people wasn't always conducive. Now, there were bright lights in that. There were great coaches, there were foremen and people who I respected that they showed levels of leadership. There was things I could learn from them about how they would lead a group or lead an organization or have a vision on completing a project. In retrospect, I can see that today. At the time, I didn't recognize that. I knew that I respected that individual, but I wasn't clear why. I couldn't identify it. I couldn't put it into words. Okay, so I did have demonstrated success in certain areas of life around things like leadership and other areas. But again, the mindset of being successful or getting out of the trades or going in and investing money in real estate or trying to grow your personal wealth, these were not conversation topics that started to come up.
Mhm.
And then I got exposed to personal development very early on. And then I started attending and investing in myself, investing dollars into my own personal education. And through doing that, I would now show up to the job trailer and I would be reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant and real estate books. And I would join real estate organizations and I would go to networking events with entrepreneurs and even events where there would be some multi-level marketing business and network marketing business that was there, and I would get engaged in conversation with people who wanted something more with their life. Now, did I always meet the people that were at the top level of success? The answer was no. But I was engaged around an environment of people that wanted something better for their life. And that desire would naturally lead them to trying to connect and build relationships with people who had already created something better with their life,
Mhm.
something that was closely aligned with what they were looking for. And so I found that's the direction that the path led me. It made me want to invest more and more in my personal education. I realized that when I got involved in organizations that had an entrepreneurial spirit to them, that the conversations were different. They were deeper. They were more meaningful. They were more raw. They were more open. Open being that people would share the challenges that they were experiencing trying to grow their business, the challenges they were experiencing running a business and running ragged and not having enough time to spend with their family and figuring out how can I solve that time balance problem. And for many of us, we don't necessarily, I can tell you, I still haven't solved that. But I'm a work in progress. I'm still whittling away at that piece of wood, trying my best to create that environment that I'm looking for. And I've seen progression along the path because I've been actively motivated in doing that. All people want something better for their life. They just don't necessarily know what the better is. They haven't necessarily labeled it or quantified it in such a way where they can move themselves down that direction. But all of these progressive steps have been because of surrounding myself with like-minded people, goal-oriented people, people who want something more with their life, and they're willing to take the necessary actions to go and get it. And then you'll bump into people, even in those environments, who maybe they want 3 or 4 of those things, but they don't want 6 of those things.
Mhm.
And you notice that there's little things that are pulling them maybe down or back into the trench to some degree. Maybe there's some negative energy that's going around in their world and that they haven't yet figured out how to resolve. And so you naturally tend to gravitate, again, gravity is a powerful force, to the people that don't have those things holding them back. You're just kind of closing in the circle, closing in the circle. And every once in a while, new people enter the circle and then it expands again. But when it's expanding now at a position where the mindset of growth, the abundance within that circle is increasing. So you're getting an increasing circle of people that are more and more abundant, and you're decreasing the circle of people that have a scarcity mindset.
Mm.
And so think about the power of abundance. And any time that you felt abundant or felt you were in the presence of people who were abundant minded in your life, and just recognize how enjoyable and how powerful that feeling is. And then find out and ask yourself a simple question. Well, if this is so good being in this, in this environment, where can I go and find more of that in my life?
Yeah.
And your brain is a powerful tool. It's going to try to solve that problem for you.
Awesome. Now, you talk a lot about surround yourself with those people that you want to gravitate to, the type of mindset that you want to surround yourself with. But it also starts with you. It also starts with your mindset first, so that you want to put yourself into those environments. Now, you're one of the most energetic guys I know. You're one of the most positive people I know. Even if something does kind of rattle you, you find the humor of that and just kind of talk about it as if it's a joke or if it's something funny or something like that, because of that positive mindset. So it starts with you as well. So what is your secret? How do you wake up in the morning so that you have that positive mindset, that positive energy, so that you go, you know what, I want to put myself into those rooms, surrounding myself with those people, so that I can boost that even further?
That's a really good question. I will say I'm not much of a morning person. So I don't necessarily wake up every morning with that fire. It's more of a drag my butt out of bed some days. But that's, again, I recognize and understand where I do and conduct some of my best level work. And mornings hasn't proven to be always the best for me. And but that's okay, because I have awareness of it. So having a level of awareness of self, and I didn't know that or develop it naturally. I understood certain things naturally that I was never scared or afraid of hard work. I was always ready to jump into things that showed up. But it's through doing certain degrees of that self-development that I started to understand. And then I would check in with other people. I'm like, hey, have you kind of observed this? Does this seem like a consistent thing that I do? I would start to learn about certain behaviors maybe that I would do that maybe impacted other people negatively, or where I was showing up in such a way where I wasn't showing up as my best self. I wasn't, producing that gravity that I was seeking. And then I would find out areas where when I was doing certain activities or certain behaviors, I was elevated and I was drawing people in to that gravity, that positive gravity. And when you start to see and recognize those behaviors, the ones that aren't producing the result you want and the ones that are, you simply do more of them. You simply choose to do more of these actively. And we don't get it right all the time. Nobody will. But it's by having awareness, when you start to recognize some of the other energy that's maybe not positive or isn't the stuff that you're looking for, when you see that it does come up, arise, you're able to much more quicker recognize that and say, make us, geez, you know what? Hey, that thing that I used to do, I just did that here recently. I didn't feel great about that. I don't really want to do a lot of that again. I'm going to make a conscious choice to try and do more of this over here. So the ability to make a conscious choice can only happen if you're conscious about what transpired, which means you need to have a level of awareness. And for me, a great deal of that awareness has come from certain tools, obviously through regular coaching and mentorship and that sort of thing. But, one thing that's been extremely positive to me, and we've talked about this before, Fong, is the Kolbe A Index. Kathy Kolbe, Kolbe, created the Kolbe Index. The Kolbe Index isn't a personality assessment. It's an assessment to help you understand your natural instinctual way of doing things in the world. How would you go about solving problems if left to your own devices? Now, I first did that in probably, maybe 2010, 2011, somewhere in that range. And when I received that and I went through the report, certain things really connected with me. I realized that there was a way that I was using my time. There was certain things that I was doing that were natural to me. And I often thought that although they were natural to me, they were the opposite of what the world had told me to do. The world around me, the public education system, the the pressures of the world says, oh, well, you should be more like this, you should do more like that. I never felt comfortable in those things. And sometimes I used to feel, prior to me getting my Colby, am I doing something wrong? Like, the world's telling me I should go do this, but I just really seem to struggle with that. And this over here, this seems to make more sense to me. So going about doing and solving problems in my way is more efficient for me than going and solving problems the world's way. And most likely, everyone listening to this is probably the same. So the certain things that developed in that report really started to give me a heightened level of awareness of things like my usage of time, where I'm best spent in my activities. When I start to feel burnout, which we all do in areas, for me, burnout times are created because I'm spending more time in activities that don't energize me. And the things that energize me is doing stuff like what we're doing right now, having a great open conversation where we're getting to share the ideas that have shaped our world with other people so that we can hopefully add a positive impact to them. And that type of energy, that type of conversation, for me, it elevates. And it's easy to have positivity when I get to do something I love to do. So I think, to circle back to your question about how do I maintain it is by being proactive, by increasing my self-awareness of the things that I'm best positioned to do in the world, and then trying to find and activate activities in my life where I can experience those as many times as possible throughout a day, a week, a year, a month, and knowing that is possible. So once you know it and you experience it, you're simply trying to get more and more and more and more of it. It's kind of, I guess, to a degree, it's kind of like a drug. It's just that this drug is a mental drug. It's the thing that really rejuvenates you and your brain and your mindset. And then I think it has a physiological effect that the more that you're activated mentally, the better probability that it'll activate you physically as well, as far as, what really, rejuvenates you. So I think people need to develop a higher sense of self-awareness and being in the right environment of people. Again, one example I'll use of that is, I joined an organization called Strategic Coach. I love it. It's a fantastic organization. Dan Sullivan created it. It's for high-performing entrepreneurs. And in order to be a member of Strategic Coach, you need to earn a certain level of income, and you need to get a letter from your accountant and send it into Strategic Coach that says that you do earn a certain level of income. If you don't learn that level of income, you just can't participate and be a member. So that's a barrier of entry. But for me, that barrier of entry is fantastic, because what it means is when I'm in that room with those group of individuals, everybody is at a level of experiencing similar challenges and problems in their business, and they've already overcome or surpassed certain challenges and problems in their business. So you're able to be in an environment where the level of conversations and the abundance and the growth mindset are at a certain level. And if I'm looking to strive and challenge myself to be more, do more, help more, I need to be in an environment that challenges me to do it. And if I'm working with just walk into some random networking function, there could be people that just started their business yesterday, and that's okay. But then you find that you're spending a lot of time helping individuals, not enough time maybe getting yourself the chance to be helped and be coached and be mentored up to the next level. So you always want to be striving to certainly help others, but also in order to get yourself to where you want to be, you need to find people who've already leveled up in some degree. And it's just like you're playing a Super Mario game. You're just looking to how you can beat the level and get to the next level. And you need to be around people who've already accomplished that to some degree in your life. And, I know, Fong, for you just recently got back from an amazing session. You were down at Mega Success. And I would imagine there was a ridiculous amount of people in the room. And that's one of the events I know is you're extremely fond of, and you've been a very loyal member of the JT Fox organization for so many degrees, spoken on massive stages. I suspect, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's an environment that helps you grow and elevate to the same degree that I'm kind of sharing here.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I mean, I love what you talked about. When you're in a room where everybody's learning from you, you need to recognize that there's a point in time that you need to put yourself in a different room where you're actually learning from somebody else, and so that you can grow as well, so that you can develop that mindset. And for myself, that event that I go to on a yearly basis is one of those things that I constantly am able to challenge myself, from being an attendee to being somebody who's winning awards, to somebody who's going up on stage and speaking, to interviewing people. It's one of those things that you keep on seeing other people grow, and you don't want to be left out. You want to grow with them and be part of that group of people that are at top-notch elite level thinking. So I love what you explained there, because it's very, very important, because some people really want to be in those rooms where they feel like the big dog, where they feel like, hey, everybody's coming to me, I'm in the right place. Well, that's not necessarily true. Now, you mentioned about putting yourself in that room, but first working on your mindset first before you go into that room. Some people, okay, fine, I'm in the room, but I'm scared. Now, in order for someone to really expand their mindset, yes, being in the room is good, but for them to really expand, they need to engage. So for yourself, how would you recommend people who are scared, who are introverts at heart, to break out of that and engage in conversation and engage with other people there so they can actually extract more from that experience?
Oh, that's such a good question. That's a beautiful question, Fong. And what comes to mind is you're familiar with Bob Burg, correct?
Mhm.
So Bob Burg, author, he wrote The Go-Giver, a number of great things. He was a very big sales trainer. Watching Bob Burg on stage has always left an impression on me, and I can still see it. And one of the tools that he shared at that session was something that has always stuck with me, and it's been very powerful, very helpful for me on my journey in going to networking functions and going to events and figuring out how to break the ice and how to connect with people. And it's Bob Burg's top 10 open-ended questions. Now, if you Google that, I'm sure you'll find it on Bob's website somewhere. And those questions are really interesting, unique questions to open up conversation that are relationship building. And so if you're more of an introverted person and you're never sure how to connect with somebody, my suggestion is very simple. You create a simple process. You create a procedure of how you're going to do it. And you be very intentional, and you do a little bit of deep breathing before you walk in the room, or you go take a break, or you go to the side of the room, collect yourself, and you say, my objective and my goal is to have one quality conversation with somebody new. All I want to do is to have one quality conversation and learn something new about somebody else. That's not me. And if you make it about that person rather than about yourself, you'll often overcome some of those fears. And you have pick one of the questions on Bob's top 10 list. Like, as an example, you're in a entrepreneurial format, and you open up with someone and says, hey, what would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned since you've been in business, right? And that's an open-ended question. It's usually going to have a fun conversation. And when somebody opens up, because they don't receive a question like that very often, then you're going to learn new things about them. Hey, what was the biggest success that you've ever experienced with the business that you're in today? So these are the kind of questions that aren't just, oh, tell me what you do. Nobody wants to tell you what they do. They want to have a deep conversation. And we all crave connection with other people. You can foster and become a master at creating that connection by just changing the way you ask simple questions. Mm-hmm. And so if you're an introverted person and you're going out of your element, a healthy level of fear is the biggest thing that helps us grow. If you're not experiencing some level of maybe a little bit of apprehension or some fear, then you're probably not going to get the maximum amount of growth. Right. And so for you being able to take that one step, that is a building block in the success path of your life. And when you are experiencing some fear and some challenge, that's a signal that there's an opportunity for tremendous growth in your life in whatever format it shows up. I believe that's the way that the world is telling us we have an ability here to now level up. We just have to figure out and ask ourselves the right question to say, am I going to shrink or am I going to expand? Am I going to challenge this fear or am I going to let it get the better of me? Mm-hmm. And if I'm going to go and do something about this fear, what specifically might I do that's totally different than what I've done in the past? You just ask yourself a few questions rather than trying to figure out what the fear is all about. Just figure out, do I want to get over it? Do I want to overcome this? And what could I do? What are some random possibilities? Make a ridiculous little list, make it so silly, like, whatever, you have the fear of talking to someone new. Okay, well, what could happen if I did that? Oh, geez, I could spill wine on my pants. all of a sudden a tiger could jump into the room and it could, claw at me. Like, well, that's totally ridiculous. There's no tigers in the room. They're not in the hotel. That's not going to happen to anyone. But it's so silly and ridiculous that your brain's like, oh yeah, that's pretty silly. You get a little bit of humor, and it's like you're overcoming this challenge by identifying some of the ridiculousness of how small that environment really is, and it's going to help you overcome it. So if you're introverted, set a challenge to meet one person and have one quality conversation where you learn something about them. And if you just did that, how much better would your life be? If you could walk out of that room in that one day and you could have one card or one contact information for a person you could follow up with, and then you could circle back to that individual and say, hey, I really appreciated meeting you at the event. I really love what you said about your kids, about your business, about your success. I'd love to stay connected. Boom. And that is a big step. And then the next event, it gets easier. And the next event, it gets easier. And pretty soon you're going to wonder how 2 years ago you ever had that issue in the first place.
Mhm. Definitely true. And some great tips there for introverts who jump into a room and now they're finally engaging. They're finally breaking through that mindset about connecting with people, building relationships. Now, as you and I both know, as we have discussions and build relationships, we're going to notice more and more opportunities open up. But then there's that mindset of, oh, that opportunity probably isn't true, or that opportunity is probably fake. How do you start opening up your mindset to new opportunities and new things that people may or may not be common to accept?
When you're in an environment of people who have experienced a wide variety of opportunities, they talk about them. And so you get exposed to things that you didn't know were opportunities just by the virtue of hearing other people share a story. So that's one way that it happens. And opportunity is a funny thing. It's actually around you. It surrounds you all the time. It's there every single day. You just don't recognize it for what it is because we aren't trained. We're not taught from a young age to understand what the power of an opportunity is. Once you recognize that a certain kind of opportunity exists, now all of a sudden you start to see it everywhere. The opportunities exist everywhere where we have an opportunity to learn, hey, here's a relationship I have. Maybe it's with a family member and there's some strife that's taken place. You can look at that as a problem, or you could look at that as an opportunity. And maybe the opportunity is to create and establish a deeper, more powerful bond with that person, that family member, that could be created. Maybe you don't know how you're going to do it, and maybe they don't know either. But if we look at it through the right lens, then we can come at it with different questions. Instead of start saying, how do I reduce my exposure to that person? You might start asking the question, how do I engage in a different way to create a positive outcome?
Mhm.
And so we're changing the language by making a conscious choice to look at how we see things on a daily basis. Probability, if there's something that's going through your life that's really irritating you or pissing you off, there's actually an opportunity there. You're just not looking at it as an opportunity because we're too mentally jaded with the feeling that's being created. But if you take a moment and you stop, sit down for a minute, grab a glass of water or coffee and just reflect on it for a moment and say, you know what? I'm triggered by this. If I could look at this in another way and I could recognize an opportunity exists, what would that opportunity be and how would I go about finding it?
Mhm.
So the simple question of how might I go about finding it or how might I look at this differently will be enough to cause you to change the way that you see the environment. That's not a natural thing for people to do. It's a learned skill. Just like you can learn how to ride a bike, you can learn how to drive a car, you can learn how to bend electrical conduit, you can learn how to spot opportunity by changing the way you ask questions in your own head.
Awesome. We talked about mindset. We talked about developing your own personal mindset, surround yourself with right people to boost that mindset, having that engagement so that you're able to build relationships, again, boosting mindset, having that mindset accept more opportunities and learning more things. And if it wasn't for that, I would not have known you. If it wasn't for that, I would not have known about infinite banking. I would not be writing books. And same with you. You've heard a lot of other people writing books and you've looked for an opportunity to write a book yourself. So congratulations on your book. And for everybody else, if you ever want to write a book, before you write that book and before you self-publish, watch this video right now.